Hello and welcome to 91.9 Public Affairs. I'm Micah Terrell. Also welcome to APSU-TV. When we think of Athens, Greece, we think of beautiful landscapes and lovely architecture. We may not realize that it's the heart of global security studies. Each summer, through a partnership between Austin Peay State University's Institute for National Security and Military Studies and the Research Institute for European and American Studies, students have the chance to learn all about Europe's policy think tanks and diplomacy, intelligence, and much more. It's a hands-on internship during the summer. Now, joining us today is Dr. Rich Mifsud. He is the director of the Institute here at Austin Peay. He's been instrumental in developing and curating this internship for us. And also is Joshua Hunt. He's an NSS student who went on the internship to Greece and spent the past summer there interning. So it's wonderful to have them both here talking to us today. Now, Rich, if you could start us off, please talk to us about what the Research Institute for European and American Studies does in Greece.
They do, it is virtually like a think tank. So there's a wide variety of stuff that they do. They focus most of their research on things that are happening inside Europe right now, as Greece is sort of an entrance into Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the Balkans. And as we know, there is the war in Ukraine that's going on. And you have a lot of refugees coming out from South American and African nations as well. And they all seem to be funneling through Greece and then heading into those three separate areas. So that is one of the main things that they're focused on right now is that population coming in, and then what threats do they offer to Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the Balkans.
It's a very active place
Yes.
and a lot going on. So how did the internship between the two institutes come about?
Well, honestly, Dr. Erin Carlin, who's one of the faculty with the Institute who teaches the NSS or National Security Studies degree, she attended a conference online, and Dr. John Nomakos, who runs RIEAS, he was also in that conference, and he had put out not a flyer, but like a call that said, "Hey, I've got 2 slots open for this internship." So she contacted him, and then she contacted me, and then we did a Teams call with him, and then with that, honestly, that was like August of 2024, and that is how it all started.
Wow.
I began talking with him on a regular basis. Coincidentally, the dean for the College of Behavioral and Health Sciences, Dr. Dean DeLynn Williams, she used to be at the University of North Georgia and knew John Nomakos because the other students that were there were also from the University of North Georgia. So she goes, "Oh yeah, that's a great thing to do," and that's really how it all started.
Very cool. So now how does this internship fit in with Austin Peay's Institute of National Security Studies and Military Studies? How does it fit in with the mission that you have?
Well, with the degree program, the NSS degree focused a lot on intelligence and the intelligence cycle. And so this internship allows the students to do just that. I mean, they're there in Athens for 1 month every day, and they're collecting on human intelligence. They're learning from defense attachés at different embassies, not just the U.S. embassy, Bulgarian, Ukrainian, I'm trying to think of the other ones, but that were there. And then some of the military and police institutes that are in Greece, as well as other European institutes that will come and speak there. And then that's for the students, the thing. For the faculty, it gives us a chance to meet other faculty from other nations that run projects through RIEAS, and it allows us to do collaboration.
Very cool. And very, again, nice to see how other countries handle these situations. We are used to Americans and how we do things, but seeing other countries at work too is awesome as well.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely. Now, what makes this opportunity different from maybe more traditional study abroad programs where we go and look and we study it, and it seems very different? Could you explain the differences?
So, yeah, the traditional study abroad programs, they come in, I don't want to say 2 flavors, but it's like 2 sizes. One is you're taking a tour of a country or several countries, and you're literally moving every other day from hotel to hotel, and you're visiting sites and museums, and you're learning a little bit about the culture and whatnot. And then you're on a plane and you're back home. Another version is that you are over there for a semester or a year, and you're a student at the university, just like any other student. You just happen to be American in a foreign university, and then you're going to classes just like any other student. This is different because you're doing 1 month of intelligence summaries every day. And Joshua could go into that a little bit, but you get your weekends off. But the way Dr. Nomakos does it is they have to do an intelligence summary at the end of the day of stuff that they had learned, and then how they see it from their point of view, how it affects the U.S. national security interests, from what they've learned, and then put that in the summary, and it goes to him, and then it goes to us as well, and it's part of their grade. So it is one class for the degree. And so we give them, you could either take that class in person here at the university, or you could take it online, or better, you take it as an internship and go to Greece and get that immersed experience.
Very different way of learning, but I'm sure, and Joshua will talk more about it, I'm sure it's very memorable, and you will never forget, right, what you did. So in case you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Dr. Rich Mifsud, and he is the director of the Institute for National Security and Military Studies here at Austin Peay, and we're discussing a really unique type of internship that's part of the National Security Studies major, which is awesome. Now, we discussed a little bit about some of the things that Joshua was able to do. What kind of specific skills or competencies do you hope, Rich, that people who would do this like Joshua would get out of the completing the program?
The biggest one that we always push is that critical thinking piece. It's being able to quickly analyze, assess, and then make decisions. And if you're working in that field, then you're making recommendations to a superior person, right? This is what I believe. This is what I know. This is what I think. And so that's what we want. We also want a piece of creativity. So that gets lost a lot sometimes in the intel world is that creative piece. And if you can bring in that creative piece, it comes into what I do the air quotes of the outside the box thinking. We want a piece of that as well. That is what seems to be growing, especially on the corporate side, because the degree does look at both the government world and then the corporate world as well.
Now, direct interaction with defense professionals and defense attachés. What was that like? I'll ask Rich, obviously you saw it from a teaching perspective and you saw it from a learning perspective. How do you think it was different for either of you to see those things?
So, how do I say this? So, I was there on their first day. I made sure, I went to the airport, made sure that they arrived. I got them to their Airbnb. And then I went with them for that first day, and I sat in, and they had the defense attaché from Bulgaria who spoke fluent Greek. And then they had he used to be a 3-star Air Force general for the Greek Air Force who was instrumental. Yes. As he was stationed in Saudi Arabia, and he was instrumental in getting like U.S. assets into theater back in the day, and because he knew people, right? He'd been there, and he'd been like the defense attaché at the time for the Greek embassy, and so he helped grease the wheels that got the U.S. and then other NATO partners as well our equipment into the theater during the original Gulf War. And back in 91, in 90 actually. So from my perspective, because I have 30 years of being in the military, and I've done a lot of overseas things where I did work at the level of a combatant command. So I've been around defense attachés. So the way I was looking at it was different from not only from a professor, but from the student as well. I was looking at it from my previous military experience, listening to what he said, understanding what he said. But for instance, one of the biggest takeaways that I got out of his brief was that he was formerly a defense attaché in Serbia, and we also have a partnership with International Institute for Politics and Economics. We're the only U.S. institution that has a partnership with them. Some of their other partners of note are China and Russia, our competitors. Mm-hmm. He was just talking about how there isn't a Serbian village you can go to that you don't see a Chinese supermarket in Serbia. And I said, I have noticed that while being in Belgrade these last 2 years when we do our other study abroad over there. And so I quickly picked up on that, and I looked at the room to see how many students were picking up on that. Mm-hmm. And for those APSU students that come with us, this March, they will notice that too. They will notice how many Chinese nationals are walking around Belgrade.
Right, because they're making that investment. We've talked, I know, in other segments about how China is seeing the need for that investment to happen.
Exactly, the economic. And that's part of what you learn through the both that study abroad and this one in Athens, because they are winning the world through economics. They are literally buying everything up or investing.
Very much so. Definitely. Very important thing. Now, Joshua, you tell us about what you saw in that briefing that you saw. You saw a seasoned and several seasoned leaders from the military. What kind of impression did that give you?
I think at first I was intimidated by these people. Dr. Nomikos spent a lot of time with us one-on-one before these people came in, pushing us to ask these controversial questions, asking questions about corruption. Even we at the time came where certain countries were just now electing certain presidents and asking questions about those. And it was great to be that intimately close with these people. It's not like Rich said, Dr. Mifsud said, that we're not just hearing them speak at a stage. We are asking them questions. Dr. Nomikos has quite literally locked them in a room and made them ask questions to us. So it was great to be that close to a defense attaché and have them have to answer our questions. Body language was one of the biggest things I learned when I was there.
Right. Tell us a little bit about that, what you discovered about how their heads and shoulders and torso positions mean things.
I had a great example when the Polish attaché came in, and we had about 30 minutes to ask questions, and I asked something about the Pegasus program, which was they had been accused of surveilling their own civilians. And he went to him a very open, how diplomats are. They're open. They love talking about their own country, but then he closed off very quickly. That's something I noted in my intelligence report, which is something that some people forget to add in, is that when you ask certain questions, you don't always need an answer. You need to see how they react to the question, which when I started to learn how to write that down in a report, as Dr. Mifsud said, my report started to change because I started looking and analyzing for different things, which was great.
Body language tells so much, doesn't it? Wow, you learned a lot. So again, he was kind of closing off and
he crossed
not
his
ready
arms.
to talk.
He did not want. He just said, we only use it for the terrorists and the illegal immigrants. And that raised the question. I did not push further. We didn't have any time. But it raised a lot of questions on how they actually do that. How do they sort that? And the answer is there's no good way to do it.
Right, definitely. And that's honestly probably a concern for any government is how do you sort out, is that a domestic terrorist person? Is that an illegal person? There's really no way to tell, is there?
There's not really. You just have to cast a wide net and hope you catch the right person.
And yet you may not. And so it's up to, but it was great. Those are great observances and everything, Joshua. Thank you. So again, if you're just tuning in, this is 91.9 FM Public Affairs and APSU-TV. I'm Micah Terrell, and we're speaking with Joshua Hunt. He's a student participant in an internship with Austin Peay's National Institute of Military Studies, and also Dr. Rich Mifsud, if I could talk, who's the director of the Institute. Thank you again so much for speaking with us about the National Security Studies internship that you participated in. Now, how did you hear about the internship, Joshua?
I have an advisor, Dr. Rudy Baker, had reached out to me and said it would be something that I might be particularly interested in alongside of two other candidates. And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply and I'm going to try because it seemed like something very interesting and something I really wanted to do. So I applied and I got the interview and I popped onto Zoom and that was history for it.
Awesome. So once you were able to get the internship, what did you feel like when you were walking off the plane, you're in Greece? What was your first impression of Athens?
Honestly, I was tired because
Yes.
that plane ride was a very long plane ride. But when I got out there, even the air felt different in this country. You realize that you're no longer at home, that people act differently, they walk differently, and that the norms are different. Just walking through the city of Athens for the first time, and just watching outside the window as we drove to the Airbnb for the first time, I saw things I've never seen before. And I was very excited for the first time to be able to see a different country from a different perspective.
What impressed you the most, do you think, Joshua, when you were driving to that Airbnb?
I think that the architecture was very different. That was what was most impressive. I'm used to American architecture. I think the most different I've seen was the ones in Atlanta or in Washington, D.C. But when you get to Athens, the buildings are different shapes. There are giant murals on the sides of buildings, and just the way the city's set up, it's centered around the subway rather than around large interstates like we are here, which was what I found most impressive.
Very cool. So mass transit was different. Did you get to enjoy the subway at all?
We actually used the subway the entire way through. It's very straightforward. If you get off at the wrong stop, you just go the opposite direction back to the stop. So it was very easy. But because of the way, like I said, everything was built around it, you could basically get to every destination you wanted to be at by a subway, and it would be within walking distance. And if you venture too far, you probably have bumped into another subway station.
Probably. So that's really cool, though, that you got to see what that's like. Now, what was it like at the Institute there in Athens? What did you feel when you walked inside and saw a military institute and another continent for the first time?
Like I said before, it was very intimidating for the first time. I had not met Dr. Nomikos that close. He was somebody I was trying to impress, and then as I settled into it, it became a lot more comfortable. I felt like I was able to feel like a professional for the first time, which is something that a lot of students don't get to do until they start their jobs. And because we were doing intelligence reports, we weren't just writing, papers or, just being lectured the entire time. We were actually trying to get something out of them. And I had an objective, and it felt great to be able to do that.
Very cool. Now, what was your first day like before we discuss, I know there's lots of growth opportunities, but what was the first day like? Was it just getting acclimated, or what kind of things do you remember
It was
from that
Dr.
first day?
Nomikos really briefing us on how to act in Athens, things that we should or shouldn't do. He wanted us to feel Greek culture. He wanted us to be, Greek for a day. It's like, you're going to eat like a Greek, we're going to have coffee, etc. And he was very excited to explain what his culture was to another people. And I will say that something that was a theme around it is that every Greek that we had spoke to, native Greek, they wanted to explain their history because it's very important to them.
A very colorful and rich history, much longer than ours in America, but very interesting. So tell us, before we talk more about culture, let's talk about, again, your learning experience. What do you think was a moment that you felt yourself starting to be like, okay, I'm getting this. I'm getting the lessons that Dr. Nomikos is telling me. I'm getting some of the things that Dr. Mifsud has talked to me about. Where was that time your light bulb came on? Maybe?
My light bulb came on was when Dr. Nomikos had told us we need to press these people more. We need to ask, more current questions. We need to ask questions that we think would be uncomfortable to them because they will have to answer them. And when I applied that for the first time and I got a good answer and I got a very pretty intelligence report out of it, that felt great. That was my light bulb moment when I was able to ask a question that I thought would get me a bad reaction, and it actually got me a good one. And the thing about it is when you ask these questions, you get respect out of these people, which I found was to be my level up moment.
Very cool. Yeah, because, again, these are leaders who, probably are questioned all the time, and to have you as an intern saying, okay, leader person, what is this? And then having them actually answer your question, that's probably very Was it reassuring to you as well, probably, to be like, okay, I did my homework, I did things
It is
like I was
very
supposed
reassuring
to?
because when I say they give you respect, they actually find it to be a compliment when you're able to ask controversial or current questions about either their domestic politics or politics between two nations that are not very advertised on like mass media. Right now, we have a lot of focus on Ukraine and Israel, but you don't see a lot between how is Bulgaria and Poland doing at their border issues. And being able to say, oh, I'm up to date, that there's like, oh, we respect you because we don't normally get foreigners that understand our problems. And that was what I mean by it felt great.
Yeah, no, that's very good. How did the mentorship with like Dr. Namakos and other staff from the institute there in Athens, how did they help you? You mentioned he discussed the culture. What else did he and the
Dr.
other staff do?
Nomakos moves mountains for you to make sure that you get these connections. One of the biggest things I will say is that Dr. Nomakos will almost chase down these attaches to make sure you at least get their business card. He spent most of this internship making sure that we make connections with every person we come in contact to. Some of them weren't so willing to give their contact information out, which makes perfect sense. But you at least come back with 5 or 6 business cards where you can email these people and they can ask you questions. The Bulgarian attaché, he chased them down to make sure I got that business card. He makes sure that every single person gets some type of contact with these people. He is making sure that you build a network while you're there. He emphasizes it throughout that the most important thing you can do when you're in front of these people are make connections that are more than just academic, long-term professional ones. And if you advertise yourself as such, you become an asset in the future.
Definitely, because you're learning lessons that will carry you. As both of you mentioned, these are real life skills you're learning. You're learning about communication, about critical thinking, some other great things. And along those lines, what were some of the things? I know you mentioned the defense attaché, and of course, the doctor you mentioned before, that they all were curious about cultural lessons. But what other intellectual lessons did you learn while you were taking part in briefings and taking your notes and things? What other lessons that you would like to share with us?
I think the big one was the human intelligence side of things. It's like soft, like I talk a lot about body language. That was one of my biggest takeaways. And I will repeat this throughout this interview, is that soft power is hard to learn from an outside perspective. We talk about, I will say a lot about history and culture, but it is being able to, as an American, see how countries see each other and observe that without the filter of what our universities have. Because as American, we see things and we receive things differently. We see the interactions between countries differently than, say, the Serbian attaché will absolutely tell us about the Kosovo conflict very differently than maybe the Albanian will. And the biggest lessons are that you have to see things from different perspectives. Otherwise, you are not going to get a full story.
And that's really interesting. You bring up the different communication styles, too, and that fact that we as Americans are very low context. We just say what we mean, right? But it seems like in countries in Europe, very different types, right? We have some that are very too close to their vest. They keep their emotions and words very, very very high contact. So it's, again, maybe more just a motion or a gesture or raise of an eyebrow that kind of like, oh, well, maybe that didn't go so well with them. So noting those differences probably was a big thing.
Sometimes inciting a physical reaction from these people does take a little bit of work, because you got to remember that these people are trained in like public relations. They are defense attachés. They're professionals. So you have to be prepared to ask the right questions to get the right answers, which if you're able to do that, it definitely helps your professional development to, as a student, learn how to do that early so you don't so you can just add on later as you develop as an intelligence professional.
Very cool. Now, how did you prepare for your daily? And again, you were there for a month, so was it different than your prep work that you might do here in, say, Clarksville, Tennessee? You obviously have access to the internet, access to social media. Was it similar to your preparations that you would do for your briefings that you did there during the internship, or did you do a little bit more homework? Perhaps?
I did a lot more homework. A lot of it was I had to figure out the cultural and historical ties beforehand. How close were they to the Russian Orthodox Church, which is a big topic that when we were there. How close were they to China, or what deals do they have economically between two countries? Like Serbia had a lot of investment from the Chinese, but how much do they have in the West? That's going to change the way you're going to have to ask questions, and it will give you an idea of what answers to expect from them, because they might talk a lot about Europe and they might talk a lot about China or Russia, and it's about getting ahead of that curve. With speakers we have here, we don't have as many opportunities to just ask them questions, and it's usually about the topic and theme they have that day. But in Athens, we set the pace and the questions, and they set a bit of the theme, but not nearly as much as we do. And you're completely allowed to just come out of right field and ask a different question, which I ended up doing a lot. And they respect that still, too, and it's great.
I was going to ask you, did you have any moment where you had someone go, no comment? Or there's some times where you have those political briefings. I know sometimes we see them, maybe the Pentagon is taking questions from reporters, and they might ask a very sensitive question. And some people are like, no comment. Was
I
that
had
like that?
one where I think he basically tried to say he saved himself by time, but he was not willing to answer my questions about Serbian relations with China. As Dr. Mifsud said, with the Chinese supermarkets, I was asking about threats to their autonomy and sovereignty and critical resources, because the Chinese have bought up a lot of steel and copper in Serbia. And I was asking him, do you not see this as a problem? And he says, no, we're perfectly fine there. We have no bias towards the east to the west. And I bring up investments. He's like, no, that's not proof at all. And it's like, it very much is. The investment from just China is more than triple from Europe. How is this not? And he's like, he just brushes my question off. He deflected, which in itself was an answer that I put down. But it was one of those times where I had just to have to accept that I had hit a wall and I'm not going to get a straight answer from him.
Very good that you were observant and saw and reading again the kinesiology, as we have a special word for that. So that was really great. Now, what do you think was the most challenging? And I kind of touched on that. What was the most challenging question or difficult one you had to ask?
That was the most difficult question I had to ask, because
Great.
I really wanted an answer, because I was doing some research on the topic. And I was hoping that I could get a quote that I could put down in that paper, and he just would not give me anything for it whatsoever.
Joshua Hunt, thank you so much. So, and Dr. Rich Mifsud, thank you so much too. If people are interested in the internship, what should they do?
They can go to our website and then they can contact me. I will say that you do have to be an NSS student to go, because it is directly geared for our students. And it is, as Joshua was mentioning, it is very small. There's only, I think there's 6 to 8 students from the University of North Georgia, and there's 2 slots for APSU. Now, Dr. Nomikos is looking in the future to expand that for APSU, because we had 2 excellent students show up, and he was quite impressed with what we gave him from APSU. So there's hope for, in the future that we'll have more slots. But yes, you have to be an NSS student. And we'll have an email that will go out to all of our NSS students in the next week that'll tell the dates and then how to obtain funding to go on that trip.
Wow. Well, we thank you both for sharing your experiences and sharing this great opportunity for the National Security Studies students here at Austin Peay. And so thank you so much again, Dr. Rich Mifsud. He's the director of Austin Peay's Institute for National Security and Military Studies, and Joshua Hunt, who participated in the Global Security Internship. Thanks to, again, RIEAS, who helped coordinate that in Athens, Greece. And I'm Micah Terrell with 91.9 Public Affairs and APSU-TV.